Hello and welcome back to another BlizzCon 2015 video. This time I'm going to be talking about Demon Hunters in Legion. During the systems design panel they talked about how the class would play, and while we will find out more soon, what they covered is certainly worth talking about. So the first half of the Mardoon opening zone was available on the show floor, and while I wasn't there, you should definitely check out a number of stream VODs that are available. But what I will say is that from a design perspective, parts of this class really have me quite impressed, but of course we will have to wait and see. As far as customization goes, they mentioned the unique horns, the blindfolds, and of course the unique textures that they're getting. They're also getting a full set of new voice acting, which is a pretty nice detail. Moving on to the gameplay aspects, they went into quite a bit of depth about the new Havoc class, giving us a look at how it's going to play. Their main resource is Hatred, which works in pretty much the same way as Rage does. Some abilities spend it and other ones generate it. They showed a few bread and butter attacks, and these were Demon's Bite, which is an ability that generates a random amount of fury, Chaos Strike, which spends an amount of fury, but is free if it crits, and then Throw Glaive, which tosses a glaive but has a cooldown. Now, there's quite a bit of randomness going on here, and I can see this leading to some pretty decent things in terms of moment-to-moment gameplay, but I'm worried about how that overall RNG is going to play out with the duration of a fight, especially if so much of your DPS is going to be stacked in a very short space of time in, say, your opener or a key point of the fight. It's less of a concern if it is a base ability in comparison to whether it's, say, like a massive core cooldown that would have RNG that would drastically affect your DPS, so hopefully this will average out to be okay, but I'm a tiny bit concerned. They also went into detail about the movement skills that are going to be available and how they will chain together. So essentially, double jump and glide are both on the normal jump key. If you hit the jump key twice, you will do a double jump, and then hitting jump again will activate glide, which is rather similar to the Goblin Glider. On top of that, we've got two other movement abilities. Vengeful Retreat will jump you back, doing strong damage and reducing the amount of damage that you take, and then Fell Rush will charge you forward and do some damage. Overall, the gameplay between the jumping, the retreat, and the rush looks really satisfying, and it's actually one of the things that I'm most looking forward to with the Demon Hunter gameplay, at least from a leveling and world content perspective. They then went on to showcase some of the Fell magic abilities that we're going to be using. So Chaos Nova is just a big AoE stun that does damage for 30 Fury, very similar to that Warlock one actually. There's also I-Beam. This is a frontal cone skill shot that does heavy damage, and we also have Consume Magic, which will interrupt an enemy spellcast, but if it's successful, give you a full bar of fury. So I-Beam looks particularly badass, and I really like having skill shots, meaning that I-Beam is a big plus in my book, especially for PvP. I think skill shots are something that we should really have more of in Warcraft, so it's good this is here. Consume Magic is also an interesting one in that it blends interrupting with a DPS gain, so ideally you're going to be having DHs on interrupt duty since it's going to increase their damage output across the board. I know other classes do have some mechanics which do that, but it seems like this is a very core part of what a Demon Hunter can do. And then finally we have Metamorphosis. This causes you to jump into the air, transform into a demon, and then slam the ground, stunning enemies. After that, you gain stronger attacks and have 100% lifesteal. Again, very badass, and the animation work here is pretty spectacular. They also showed off how Spectral Sight works. Essentially, all enemies within range are going to appear as red, even if they are stealthed or behind a wall, which is really cool. And I've got to say, the combination of having Spectral Sight plus all of this movement is going to be very interesting for PvP, though they don't really seem to have any crazy amounts of crowd control currently. The Vengeance spec was mentioned, but they said that it's still in development. Essentially, it's a Demon Inquisitor spec that inflicts pain through fire and has a bunch of protective spells. Their Metamorphosis is to be a strong defensive cooldown, but we don't really know much else. So what are my thoughts? Well, first of all, I really need to get my hands on this spec to get any worthwhile opinions on it. There is certainly some RNG worry here, but I do like where they're going in terms of mobility and feel quite a bit. The world of Mardoon also looks particularly badass, so hopefully it's going to be at least on par with the Death Knight starter zone. Another thing about the Demon Hunters is that we're going to be getting early access to them if you pre-order, which, by the way, I don't recommend doing until you... Well, I don't recommend pre-ordering anyway, but that's a thing for another day, but it is interesting that some point before the launch of Legion, you will be able to do their starter zone, and all of that stuff, and I presume quite a bit before Legion as well, if they're going to try to get it to be something that keeps people subbed to the game. That's a bit odd. And finally, we also know that the beta is going to be coming out within the next few weeks. That, in combination with the fact that it was playable at BlizzCon, leads me to think, anyway, that we are going to get our hands on this class pretty darn quick. They are going to be doing a series of class blogs starting this Sunday, which should be today when you see this, so hopefully that will give us more information across the board. There are other class changes which I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to hold off to see what they do. As for the Demon Hunter as well, I think it's worth getting the word out there because they seem really interesting. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.